Okay, so let's talk about land and improvements and what you can do on there. There's many levels of what you can do with property, but from the most basic level, let's say you just buy an all timbered property. The first thing that I would do is address my access, and that is trails. Spend $2,000 for a day or more and have a guy come in there and create access trails. That is probably the greatest return on your investment that you can do. And I would argue that for every dollar that you spend on creating access and trails, you get it back fivefold. I would dare say that. Second level, I would say, is now put in some food plot openings. That's going to take a little bit more. Sometimes if you timber a property and you have them thin it, but say in this area, I want you to clear cut it, and as part of the job, I want you to push the stumps into a pile, I'll burn them, and now you've got trails, and then you've got food plots, and you just increase the value of that property by those two things. So now you've owned it for a few years, and you're going up there, and you're staying in a mouse-infested trailer and on camping on the property or in a tent, and you think, I finally want a structure. Well, that's when you build a cabin. So the question at this point is how often you will use it. If your property is like what I purchased, my first property was 3.5 hours away, almost 4, you don't want to build a mega mansion because you're just not going to get there often enough, and it's not what you need. But if you intend on retiring there later on, maybe you do want to put something a little bit more substantial. Do you want an outhouse or do you want plumbing? Do you want a garage package bunkhouse or do you want a full-blown barn dominium? I mean, your budget will dictate that, obviously. The timeline of your investments, where are you at the beginning, middle, or towards the end, will dictate what you build. But improvements from a living standpoint will make a big difference in the property. Other things you can do to tweak a property a little bit are maybe putting up some bank splines. So I have on my property, I've got 2 bank splines, but I've also got some no-name pop-up box blinds, and I got the big Taj Mahal, which is an 8x8 basically house on stilts. Those are some upgrades. From there, you can build water holes. You can have a feeder if it's allowed. You can have mineral sites. You could do all these things, and then you could tweak it, and the final tweak is maybe the habitat things like the wildlife openings and clear cuts and hinge cuts and directional cuts where you're moving deer and creating a plan. So all those upgrades are all part of a property. Honestly, that's the fun of having a property because there's so many things you can do. It's honestly endless. Then you turn around and you sell it. So along the way, when you own land, always think, how am I going to get out of this? And think about marketing the property. And this is something that people do not do because they always think they're never going to sell it. But I'm here to tell you that every property turns over. So one of the very simple things you can do that you can pass to your prospective buyer is an inventory of the animals on your property, and especially if it's a recreational property. People want to know what's there. So get some trail cameras early, put them in likely strategic spots. Maybe if you can have a mineral site or a feeder or a field that the deer or animals move through, and keep a track of the coyotes, the turkeys, the grouse, the deer, the bear, the fishers, all the wildlife. You never know what the buyer is going to get triggered by. Some are deer hunters, and some don't deer hunt at all. They're going to like the butterflies and the chickadees and the hummingbirds or whatever, the bees. So all those pictures add up, and it creates a book of history, and it shows pride in your ownership, and it's something that you can really pass on to the next buyer.